I would really love to hear, Nathan, your take on the value of meditation retreats, workshops.
Okay, so I think first, yeah, like you already said, there's so many different variations of these things.
Yeah.
So if we're going to look at immersive training of any kind, it is immersive, and you are putting in a lot of hours. And whether you are doing a retreat or immersive type of experience just by yourself in a van in the middle of nowhere, or in a cave in the mountains, or with a group of people, you still have the condensed experience. And so that creates an exponential effect in terms of the concentration, the buildup of energy, the potentials for release, and information that might come through. All of that stuff is, and much more, is growing. It's cumulative. So an hour of practice a day for 7 days, 7 hours, is not the same as 7 hours of practice in one day, where the 2 hours is, 4 times the 1 hour, and doing 3 hours is 12 times the 1 hour. And then you have that every single day. So it's exponential. The power grows, the energy grows, your refinement grows, your awareness grows, so you can refine more and more and more. And then you get this very interesting juxtaposition of the massive accumulation and refinement of energy, and the quality and refinement of you disappearing, that has to accompany that, so you don't feel like you're going to die, right? It's just like, oh, my head's going to explode, my heart's going to explode, whatever. So instead of looking at it as like you have to create resilience in the body, the only reason that has to happen is if there's something in the way. So as an amalgamation of stuff that you call yourself starts to dissolve, the increase in the quality and just high octane nature, the energy you're working with can keep cascading and growing and refining more and more and more and more. Now, this is compounded again if we add silence, and we remove distractions of any and all kinds. Then you get that increase of the compounding nature of the concentration, awareness, refinement, and all the other stuff. And then the duration of time does that again. What adds to this more is if you have other people, other batteries there with you, then boom, increase it again. If you have other people who are skilled and who aren't bringing a whole bunch of nonsense, then okay, that's even better. And then if you're in, a retreat that's in some type of place of power, and you time that with, astrological type of effects, and if you are of the camp that that's a bunch of bull, there's some really interesting books on like aether physics and, like shape power, all this stuff that connects with crazy anti-gravity effects, weird things that happen only in days where, you happen to be passing through certain signs. Some really interesting work that's out there from very non, believery, non-cult, non-easily cultified people, right? So anyway, all of this stuff, if you can stack more and more and more and more and more, then awesome. Your retreat or immersion experience, you can get a lot out of it. A lot of you will die off, and you're going to go a little bit nuts. So, maybe start with a few of those things instead of all of the things, and slowly start increasing the power of the retreat or immersion that you're going to do, because too much at once, if you're unfamiliar with it, you won't understand or have experience with how you respond to all that stuff. And if you are unfamiliar with it, usually you experience all of you that is not that, which is sucky. So anyway, that's like a little brief, a few brief thoughts on that. What about yourself and you guys? Oh, your interview. Back to you, Phil.
So, thank you, brother. That was highly informative. So, Nathan, I would love to hear your take on, whether you have found dreams or dream practices to be valuable in any way.
I find typically active practices have almost always been not very fruitful for me. But within the scope of the greater practice, all of the stuff starts to happen. And that's usually how I find my way into these things, is not through attempting to do dream work, but usually in conjunction with your previous question about retreats. That was always how it would start, in terms of beginning to blur the distinctions between waking and sleeping, and what we might think of as being wakeful and then falling asleep into greater wakefulness, or waking up into greater sleepfulness. There's a whole bunch of weird paradoxes that start to occur. And this is not only subject to the dream state. I think like a lot of dream work you can look at as a really wonderful tool, but also not exclusive to being asleep in any way. And it's something that you start to be able to do in normal like meditation type practices, and then from that in normal living, as the skill keeps growing and as the tyrannical nature of the logical mind starts to give its scepter over to your spirit more and more and more. So you can have all of these like astral explorations, and you're burning off parts of you. A lot of people, when they sleep, there's physiological reasons for all this stuff, but I think often the physiological stuff is secondary and happens as a byproduct of some of the spiritual stuff working itself out. And so, as anyone who's done any Qi Gong would know, when you start moving astral energy around, especially if it's like in your body, you start to get hot, usually in the beginning. And so very often as we're falling asleep and during sleep, we start venting out a lot of these astral stagnancies. And that often just leaves as heat at night. And so you have this funny experience when most people start meditating, where, the first few hours or whatever of, if you're, going to practice all day, you're venting, you're cleansing essentially. And so one way of looking at dreams is a manner of cleansing and purification of astral stuff that's been going on. I found that the symbology of it appears much less for me. And I tend to have very similar, for the most part, types of experiences I do when like waking, when being awake and in practice, where it's everything is happening without the intermediary of the symbol, right? Mm-hmm. So the symbology is a means of like the idea, like a prime idea that's somehow trying to find its way into expression. But underneath the expression of the symbol is the thing that gives rise to the symbol. And so you can start to like talk, I say talk, but like communicate isn't really the right word either. But you start to experience with, as in, of that thing prior to the symbology. And so then you can take the symbology and use it as a tool backwards, right? Like, back down the rabbit hole, into all the stuff. I found there's been some very interesting connections where, like, probably the easiest way to get started with dream work, if you're of a mentality like me, is when you wake up in the morning, there's a period of time, I think, Michael, you called it like the mists or something, when you were talking, where the logical mind jumps in, the identity mind jumps in, and you go, oh yeah, that's why I'm excited. That's why I'm depressed. Oh yeah, my knee's supposed to hurt. Oh yeah, like I'm supposed to feel heartbroken. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be exhilarated. Oh, I forgot all that. Thank God I remembered that I'm supposed to be like whatever. And so there's this space prior to that, before you pick up your identity, And if you can hang out in that space, there's a tremendous amount of work you can do there that is so much easier to do because you don't have the imprisoned nature of the identity of that logical mind, essentially entrapping the astral habits and whatnot into their habitual locations. And so you're in that timeless space starts to open up. And so you can start from an astral standpoint. It's free to move. So it's the sometimes I use a metaphor of the identity being like a foot that's stepping on a bunch of dry leaves and the winds are blowing. If you take that identity foot off, the leaves can blow. They can move. And so in that space that before you pick up your identity, you can do a tremendous amount of liberative work, light work, healing work, whatever it is that you want to do, whether it be self-hypnotic or anything else, because your defenses are down. The part of you that needs to be separate is taken a hiatus. And so often in prayer, people touch into a similar space. And so you can use this type of before you pick up your identity thing in the mornings, for example, as a doorway to then start working back further and deeper and further and deeper. And anyone who's done a lot of meditation will, of course, go, oh yeah, I kind of know that space where you let go of yourself, and everything starts to be malleable and movable, and your reality becomes quite liquid or quite like gaseous and in different ways. Like the reality shifts and the substance of that reality can change, at least from an experiential standpoint. So in terms of entering, I think that's like the easiest way if you're don't have the greatest success with trying to do exercises specifically and having them bear fruit. And once you get into this, you can spend, a lot of time in that, pre-waking up stage, just really, really drawing that out, pulling those moments apart. And then, of course, because you've spent that time in that place, you can return to it from a more wakeful state and see if you can re-enter that throughout the day, if that's what you want to work on. I guess that topic is done. If that's what you want to, I just broke my stand. I'm just going to reorganize you all onto the table.
Oh, good. Thank you, brother. That was very insightful.
Thank you for that insight, and your stand felt the power of that.
It's like, Nathan, you're rambling. Bang.
Nathan, sir, I would very much love to hear your take on this particular question. How have your motivations for practice changed over time?
Yes, my microphone's on. Substantially, just night and day. In the beginning, most people who start, especially like Michael, I started with the martial arts side of the path. And you enter martial arts to learn to control the environment around you, to manipulate the environment around you, right? That's how you stay safe. That's how you orchestrate your space, and you learn about space, you learn about distance, you learn about time, you learn about sensitivity and bodies and all these things. And typically the motivations to enter martial arts are coming from some of the worst places. And like many who enter the martial arts, then of course, you find internal martial arts and martial arts that have some aspects of Qi Gong, whether it's Tai Chi or, ninjutsu or whatever, the list goes on. And so you start to learn about subtle body mechanics and subtleties of mind. And if you think weak, somehow that lock gets you. If you think strong, somehow you manage to get through that. And so you start to learn about, in a sideways manner, you start to learn about the potencies of the mental body, the potencies of the astral body, the fields, physical, all of it starts to open up. But in the beginning, almost anyone who starts anything is looking for ways of manipulating the environment around them. And over time, that starts to hopefully subside. And so I've found there's probably one thing that is a constant is that curiosity and wonderment. And that's something that's been with me since I was a child. And this sort of the magic of everything. And I don't know why. It's not something I've ever cultivated. But when I meet these rare people who also have that wonderment, like Michael said, there might be some weirdo, like a statue that's talking to you. Michael, you were one of those weirdos that I was like, oh, that thing's talking. and people you meet that open doors, experiences that you have that open doors. And this comes down to your awareness. Like Manu was mentioning that, you're walking through just your day-to-day experience and you start looking at like the physical symbology, almost the like in a dream, but these physical symbologies of like, oh, what could be happening in the energetic scape, in the astral landscape, in the mental landscape. And if you are too preoccupied, because she mentioned really eloquently about like mindfulness, being aware of the energy, like in real time, not mindfulness just on your cushion, but real-time mindfulness, and you start to notice these things more and more and more and more. And so there's an excitement there, and you start to unwrap the depths of your meditation in your moment by moment experience, right? To the depths of whatever the practice is. So I found that this wonderment and curiosity seems to be one of the key things for people who continue in a positive way along the path, right till they're ripe and young, like Mr. Lamb there. As you continue on with this, it's the curiosity, it's that wonderment. And that's been one of those key things. So instead of, say, trying to obsess over particular practices and condense yourself into parameters of what a particular skill might mean or what a particular attainment might mean, and all this stuff that we can only look at it from below it, right? From at it or above it, it's meaningless. But we look at everything from below and we go, oh my God, that amazing thing, clairvoyance and this and that, the other stuff. And then you start to have like claircognizant and telepathic experience and you're like, oh, shut up, right? Like all this stuff that we think of from beneath as such an exciting thing, it's just part of reality. It's just part of what's happening. And I had one of my first meditation teachers once told me that he said that there's this really sad thing that's going to happen is you're going to do all this practice, all this training, and the saddest thing, you're going to, all these interesting things and changes will happen and like skills and whatever. And the saddest thing is you won't even realize it because you're in it every single day. And so you don't have the differential to be aware, right? Differentiation is what makes awareness possible, is separation. That's how we perceive the difference between one thing and another thing, through differentiation. And so what's cool with the curiosity thing is different things light up. And as Michael was saying, you walk into nature and you can practice the elements in isolation with some fabricated notion of what the elements might be, with some fabricated feeling perception of what earth energy is, what water energy is, what this element, that element, what stuff is. Or you can go like walk barefoot on some earth and you're walking on the earth element. Yet you're also walking on the water element, and you are the water element, and you are the earth element, and you start to breathe. You're like, oh man, and you're breathing. Oh, what's that? I guess that's the air element, but you're walking on the air element, and you are the air element, and you're breathing the air element. And you look at the leaves and the foliage, and like, oh, well, that's breathing the air element. I'm breathing the air element. When I breathe in, am I also breathing out as that foliage, as that tree? And so you start to break open these Akashic barriers through the very, foliage themselves. You spark open the fire element with photosynthesis, and that takes you back into the earth element through the sugar creation, all this stuff. And it's just on and on and on. So there's all these different sort of nerdy ways of looking at things that start to open up. And it's that interconnection and the constant, like, there's the two sides of it. There's the constant next thing, more expansive thing, whether that's expansive outward or inward. At the same time, there's the space in which, or the non-space in which, the truth in which all of that stuff exists and happens, which we could look at from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective as the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya, the truth space, that bliss light space, and then the appearance space. And so you're looking at, like Michael was saying, atomics, and I have so much respect. Michael flipped me on to so many things that I was just like, what the, I went to one of your, just shameless plug for you guys, I went to one of Michael's Tree of Life workshops, and I sat down, I was like, what the fuck? what is all this nonsense? And then the days go by, and I couldn't deny the change. It was undeniable. The change in literal tissue quality of every single person there, at the tissue level, which means the astral level was pretty crazy, and the mental that much more so, because usually the change is harder to manifest the closer into form it goes. So as you're working with appearance and all of these shiny different curiosities and excitements, you're also working through that Dharma Dhatu, that truth space, that truth world, that truth body, and you're always working both, and it's constantly growing. And so I find that whether I'm super excited about some particular new aspect of research or new frequency play, or you're working with a being and doing deity yoga, and it's like, hey, check out this cool thing, and it just runs a bunch of stuff through you, and you're like, yo, that is dope. I wonder if I can do that again. Immediate error. Let's try to reproduce something. So whether it's that or the total dislodging of everything that we think of as us, that makes us in our own brains human or not, or whatever, there's always everything and nothing. End of thought, period. Back to you, Phil.
Oh, dude, yeah, I was getting lost in there. I was getting mesmerized by the Nathan. Canst thou present us with a single title for the benefit?
I don't know if I can speak so Shakespearean. I think. All right, I'm going to approach this from a different angle. I found that the most value I've ever gotten from any book is retroactive, in the sense that it comes after the practice, after the training. And so you read something and it's confirmatory to your experience. It's like a type of validation that, oh yeah, that I'm kind of on the right track with this particular avenue of these things. And so it's more like chatting at that point with friends who are on the path, or teachers on the path, than it is trying to learn a thing. Because Barden's initiation book is phenomenal, for what it is. It's a really good book, and sets the groundwork for a really thorough it's a very thorough jumping ground that it sets up, right? It's just a trampoline that can send you in so many different directions, which is what you want out of any initiation, is not to be at the top of that, ladder of chakras or whatever, for there to be a mirror that goes, hey, you can't get through this mirror. You have to spend time, just the rest of your life is only what you did. You want it to be the opposite, where you get to that point and bang, you're off to the races. So because you're reading books at that point from more of an open perspective, you're not locked into the writing and you're not locked into the author, and you don't have any identity and ego that's stuck in what you're reading. Because so often, for anyone who's teaching, who's a teacher, or who's writing books or whatever, people come up to you and they go, oh, like, I love that thing that you said about blah, blah, blah. I really like that. And cool, but it's also the thing that's going to hold you back because you like it so much. And it's not about disliking it or about being indifferent. Those are as equally like, error-filled potentials. But the more awareness you develop, the more you can see how things are affecting you on different planes. So you read a particular passage or you hear someone say something, and it cracks open a part of you that you didn't realize was locked, right? And this can be like one thing that I loved about Michael Lamb's teaching was the what he called the wordsmithing, right? And so he starts using words and being very playful with words. And initially listening to someone talk like that, I was like, oh, just another one of those people who says a bunch of words to sound cool and smart, and, oh, I said this, but it also means this. But then I started looking into what we might call like the mechanics of how that functions, and the freedom that it offers from a standpoint of the mental mind, we might say, to look at your habits of meaning and break that, right? It breaks it. And then that frees you, so that those words become a doorway. Something I say all the time these days is anything is or can be a doorway to everything, right? And so you can look at a piece of writing and that has the potential to crack you open, if possible, into the Akasha. And if that's done well, and there's a touch of some directionality with the light, then bang, like that's a pretty profound piece of writing. So what you read or the books that might be recommended, in my opinion, is really dependent upon the person. And any good teacher will recommend different books to different people based off where they're at. Because if you recommend a certain book to somebody and they're not ready for it, there's literally no point in reading it. It's going to do more harm than good. And all you have to do is look at any of the Franz Barden groups on Facebook or any other platform to go, oh, maybe you ain't ready to be reading this yet because of the questions that you're asking, right? And they say oh, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Well, maybe, maybe there is. But also, maybe every question needs to be looked at as a blockage. The questions are representations of blockages, of all of that in you that is not of everything. So the question is just a doorway to that. And when you're reading a book, if they're wherever that ego sparks up, whether it's in confusion, what's confusion? Right? That's a really cool question to look at. What is confusion? Meditate on that. What does it mean to be confused? And why do we think it's a bad thing? And what are the potentials in there? And when you use that word magic to start cracking open or cracking people into confusion, and then through that, there's groundlessness, and through that absence of referentiality, you again have an Akashic doorway. And so I still haven't given you a title yet. And that's because I can't, because it's different for everybody. At a certain stage, you can read the most nonsensical Zen-esque writings of poetry, and it's oh yeah, obviously. instead of, oh, so confusing, why do they say all this stuff that doesn't make any sense and blah, 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 right? They're just, anyone can write in a nonsensical way and sound confusing, but no, it's from the space of from a vaster viewpoint, from a non-dual viewpoint, you look at that and it's like, oh, obviously, that's so cool, right? And so it's different for everyone at different stages, and I wish I could offer you a one-off title, but I can't. Maybe I'll write a book one day, then I'll just recommend that to everybody.
Well, thank you for that. No, you're all good, brother. That's all good. Nathan, you were hot on the topic before, and we'll finish with Michael. Nathan, what are some common pitfalls or traps for students that you've noticed in your time?
Common pitfalls. I mean, everything. Like, what isn't a pitfall? What's that saying everyone likes to throw around? Like, you can't solve a problem from the place that it's created or whatever. And we almost every single spiritual system, was the question about, I guess sort of, almost every single system that exists starts you from the point of the problem, right? Every religion out there starts from the point of the problem, not from the point of the solution, or from what is beyond problems and solutions. And, that makes things really tricky, because everything from that point onwards helps to create some really shiny, like, self-idolatry as you're progressing, right? It's like I remember Manu was saying, like, sort of comparing and whatever. I remember the first meditation retreat that I did, there was like a proper, silent retreat. And you're sitting 12 hours a day. And, I was like, I'm not using any cushions, not putting any cushions under my knees, like, because, I can hold myself up. Who? Me. And I remember, like, chatting with the teacher, like, 6-7 days in. I was like, oh, I'm just so tired, body's so exhausted. And he was like, like, you can put some cushions under your knees, or, like, get a backrest or something. And I was like, I'm not a pussy. No, I can't. He's like, listen, you don't get any, like, smiley face star stickers next to your name at the end of this for not putting cushions under your knees. And, I was like, no. So it's like, what was I building over the course of those 10 days? A hyperinflated ego. And how, like, strong and how well I could resist my own fatigue, and it's like everything that you do, everything that you think, and every possible way that you try to figure out what you're doing, everything is a pitfall until everything isn't, because you aren't. So that would be my advice. You are the pitfall, and until you're not, everything is a pitfall because you're doing it. And when you aren't the pitfall, then everything isn't the pitfall because you aren't the pitfall. He said uneloquently, if that makes any sense, right? So it's like, what are you going to do? Hope that eventually your path that you happen to be on leads you beyond your path. And that's what I was saying, like, in the previous monologue on books about, like, there being that mirror that shines back down. You don't want that, right? And hopefully your path can take you to that, and then instead of it being a mirror, it isn't, and it's something else, and you can keep going. So yeah, sort your shit out, take less pride in yourself and in what you're doing, and including less pride in sorting your shit out, because that's, like, one of the most hilarious things. Like, anyone who's teaching, like, you have, it's like one of the reasons I stopped doing healing specific work is because people walk in and so proudly tell you about their problems, and it's, oh, I'm navigating this, oh, I let go of this, oh, I'm working with, like, my this issues, my that issues. Who is? Me. who's working with whose issues? Me working with my issues. So anyway, yeah, I think that's sort of it. You're the pitfall. Get over that, and things will change. Back to you, Phil.
So we'll run that one through the chat GPT and see if we can translate it into something. I'm kidding.
Into something
No, that
human.
was great. That was great. I love it because you're swinging out of left field here.
Hey, Phil.
Yes.
Can I tag one more thing on there?
Sure.
So there's in let's say Vajrayana Buddhism and a number of systems, they have a graduated path, right? And they also look at students as very bluntly as there's students of low capacity, students of medium capacity, and students of high capacity, which is funny. And also, in some sense true. So from the standpoint of a teacher, and this, right back to your book question and stuff, it's like, okay, what is the capacity of this person right now? So when it comes to pitfalls, trying to, punch harder than you can punch, or trying to bite off more than you can chew, and, whatever metaphors you want to throw on top of that, come up with your own. There's this thing of trying to do more than where you're at. Manu mentioned going back to the foundations at some point during this last 2 hours. And without limiting yourself to going back to the foundations, from these graduated paths, if you look at the foundation practices in the Vajrayana, they're really simple, but they take care of some good stuff, prostrations, 100,000 prostrations. There was some Lama who did so many, his retreats were prostrations on stone, and he burnt his imprint into the stone. If you are practicing prostrating 100,000 times, that's going to have some subconscious changeover. It's going to happen. There's going to be some shifts, some deep humility that you're going to develop, hopefully, to go with your really sore knees or whatever from the practice. But in terms of if you're a low capacity person in this moment, you can do prostrations. It doesn't take intelligence to do prostrations. It doesn't take smarts, right? It takes some devotion and prostrations. Same with the preliminary exercises of practicing giving. So they have these really simple exercises that anyone can do that have really far-reaching effects from the standpoint of Akasha. Like Michael said, without sitting there, I'm building Akasha. Who? Me. Right? Where? In front of a bathroom. Is that where you want to be building Akasha? Who? Me. Do I hate it here? Yes. Why? It smells. Akasha. Me. All of this stuff. It's you can do all that in so many different ways. And so to recognize where you might be at in this moment, of your day, of your path, and there's always something that you can do, and that's where it can be really nice looking at a lot of different systems, not getting stuck and going, oh, what are the preliminaries here, and maybe I can do that. Anyway, just a thought. Back to you, Phil.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Okay, if you're interested in training, please check out the website for any online courses and upcoming retreats. Hope to see you soon. Bye.